bad about other people. So today we are going to go over photosynthesis. I will go over the on-level biology version just real quick, and then we'll get about into the first section and probably half of the next section of photosynthesis on the AP Bio book. Next week you have an exam, so it's going to be over everything, but half of it will be chapter 6 or chapter 7, chapter 8, and then as far as we get into in chapter 9 of next week. Thursday will be a free day, so you can do studying or whatever, right? Studying or whatever questions. Work day. Yes, sir.
Is Friday the exam?
Yes.
Okay.
Next Friday?
Yep. Okay. Keep in mind you've got some stuff coming up due. Your review questions are due Monday. Yeah, osmosis labs due Monday. I think chapter 7 review questions are due Thursday. And then I'm probably going to make your free responses due Thursday as well. Because you'll also have some that I'll assign tomorrow for photosynthesis. Yes, sir.
You should assign like a Kahoot, AP Bio Kahoot.
Yes.
No. Eventually I'll get to where we do that for the definitions, and then like once every month it'll be, or 2 months or something, it'll be like a definitions thing, like on quizzes or something like that.
You know, I think we should, the blue thing, the work day, that could be our study day. But
If you want to make a Kahoot, more power to you. I probably won't. Next time I teach AP Bio, yeah, I probably will. This time I will not.
This year. He's not prepared.
Yeah.
He's setting himself for failure.
I mean, that's. I want to try to put it a little bit more eloquently than that, Mr. Pence, but that's the short answer.
Because he never taught this.
Yeah. All right, so I'll put these slides online along with this recording. Yes. All right. So also in the future, if you see a yellow ring around the TV, that means that we're recording.
Yeah.
So if you don't see it, that is how you will let me know that.
I do not see it right now. I do.
Or yeah, it'll be very slight.
I still don't see it.
Okay.
Sit closer.
I don't see it.
Daniel, that's
Take off your glasses.
Right there.
Yeah, the thickness of your glasses is just insane. Yeah.
All right. So where does photosynthesis happen in a cell? The chloroplast. All right. Good job.
Okay.
And I don't have my clicker on my computer.
This on level bio?
Yeah, this is on. I'm gonna go through on-level bio real quick, and then we'll do AP Bio stuff. Sound good? Especially since half the class is gone.
Yeah.
Right. And so some of these are the sections that you are assigned. So you know the structure and function of chloroplast, as well as the parts of chloroplast used in photosynthesis, etc. So if you look at this figure here, the chloroplast is double membrane. So you got an outer membrane, and then you have an inner membrane, and then within that inner membrane you have these thylakoids, which are the individual little discs, and then they're stacked into what are called grana, or granum is the singular of it. And then the thylakoids are the place where you have photosynthesis happen. Okay. Photosynthesis is broken down into 2 stages. The light reactions, or the light-dependent reactions, same thing, and the light-independent reactions, also called the Calvin cycle. So here you've got this figure causing the light reactions in the Calvin cycle. So essentially the way it works is the light reactions make energy that the Calvin cycle uses to turn CO2 into sugar. Okay? And then oxygen is a byproduct of the light reactions. So you know how in cellular respiration, oxygen is the final electron acceptor. Okay, and we basically take hydrogens and oxygen and electrons to make water. This does the opposite. We break apart water to make hydrogen ions, electrons, and oxygen. Yeah, so that process is called hydrolysis. Stage 1 light reaction uses water, converts light energy and sun energy into chemical energy in the form of ATP and NADPH. So this is a little bit different than, I mean, you can take notes on your laptop if you want, I don't care. This is a little bit different than cellular respiration, because in cellular respiration it was NADH, this is NADPH. But functionally it does the same thing. What do you think it's going to do? No. NADPH, what does it do?
It's like an electron acceptor.
It's an electron carrier. Yeah. Which powers what?
Powers.
The.
Well, like Calvin cycle.
No.
What's the last cycle for
photosynthesis? Is it the
You mean
same?
cellular respiration?
Well, for cellular respiration, it's electron transport.
Yeah. Photosynthesis has an electron transport chain too.
Is that the last part?
Part of cellular respiration is electron transport.
What's the last part of photosynthesis?
Calvin cycle.
What's the second?
There's just two.
There's just two?
Yeah.
You have Calvin cycle last and then first.
First is called the light reactions.
So light reaction, Calvin cycle.
Yep. Light reactions release oxygen as a byproduct of splitting water. This is what the light reactions are going to look like. It happens in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. You've got two different photosystems. You've got photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. Essentially, this is your electron transport chain. Okay. The only difference is that instead of getting energy from glucose, energy here is going to come from this light. It hits an electron, gives it energy. That energy is used to pump hydrogen ions across the membrane, and then it'll go to photosystem 1. Secondly, get hit with light again, and then these high energy electrons will be transported to an electron carrier. Okay. Now, if you look here, what are we building down here since we're moving hydrogen ions across this membrane?
Gradient.
A gradient.
So basically, what you're telling me, plants are solar powered.
Yes, right. We're building this gradient that is used to do what?
Send hydrogen ions into
ATP.
synthase.
Yeah.
Which creates
ATP synthase does the same job, right? Stage 2 is the Calvin cycle. Uses carbon from carbon dioxide and fixes it. We use that term fixing carbon. Uses chemical energy from ATP and NADPH from the light reactions to make glucose. So again, we just take carbon dioxides, add them together. Once we get enough of these G3P molecules, we'll pick them out, and then two of them will eventually make glucose. The places of photosynthesis chloroplasts. These are the organelles specific to plant cells where stages of photosynthesis occur. Both stages, they're green ovals under the microscope. That equation, you need to have that equation memorized. Okay, backward and forward.
CO2, so that one's a lot smaller than cellular respiration.
It's the same thing, except backwards.
Oh. So it's just the opposite of cellular
Yeah,
respiration?
exactly. It's the opposite of cellular
So the
respiration.
cellular respiration is 6O2 plus O6, H12, C6.
Yeah. Cellular respiration, 6O2 plus C6H12O6 yields 6CO2 plus 6H2O. Photosynthesis is 6H2O plus 6CO2 yields 6O2 plus C6H12O6.
So if you have that memorized.
All right. Again, these kind of derive from the endosymbiotic theory. Chloroplasts are once-free living bacteria that are engulfed by eukaryotic bacteria. Again, they're going to exist as things that photosynthesize. Looks like this on the microscope. This is kind of a refresher of that endosymbiotic theory, where ancestral eukaryote absorbed other bacterium. Structure of chloroplast, grana, as a stack of thylakoids, the thylakoid membranes. These are those little disc-looking deals. This is where they're going to have the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is green. It is the pigment that gets struck by the light where the electrons get excited. Stroma is basically the equivalent of kind of intermembrane space. It's the space outside the thylakoid membranes where the Calvin cycle takes place. So the Calvin cycle takes place in the stroma. The light reactions take place in the thylakoid membrane. Okay. Again, you see the visual here of chloroplasts. Dome membrane, thylakoid is where the light reaction happens. Stroma is where the light independent or the Calvin cycle occurs. Electron transport chains. This is going to be found in the thylakoid membrane. They accept and transfer energy carrying electrons in small increments. The electron movement is comparable to a ball bouncing down the stairs, and so it gets high energy level, and then it moves and it loses energy as you go down. That energy lost is used to move hydrogen ions across the membrane, create a gradient, so that ATP can be made. Okay. It's going to look like this visually. Again, you've got light coming in, hits an electron, gives it to a high energy state. As the electron moves across your electron transport chain, you move hydrogen ions across the membrane, building a gradient that ATP synthase uses. Now, photosystem 1, which is second, uses the high energy electrons that are given energy by light to turn NAD plus into NADPH. That's an electron carrier. ATP and NADH are going to be used to make sugar in the Calvin cycle.
Let's take a closer look at a chloroplast, the organelle where photosynthesis takes place. Photosynthesis consists of two sets of chemical reactions, the light reactions and the Calvin cycle. They occur in different regions of the chloroplast. Chloroplast contains stacks of membrane-lined discs called thylakoids, surrounded by a water-clear fluid called stroma. The light reactions are carried out by molecules in the thylakoid membranes, and the Calvin cycle reactions by molecules in the stroma. Let's explore these regions and their functions in more detail. In the thylakoid membranes, the light reactions transform light energy to chemical energy. Light energy drives the formation of ATP molecules from ADP, and their NADPH molecules from NADP plus and electrons. Along the way, water molecules are split and oxygen is formed, which can be released into the atmosphere. In the stroma, the Calvin cycle reactions use the chemical energy of ATP and NADPH to combine carbon dioxide from the air with organic molecules to form new molecules like the sugar G3P. ADP and NADP plus are recycled and may be used again in the light reactions. A plant increases its biomass through the formation of these new organic molecules.
Riveting, right? Woo! Let's get excited about photosynthesis.
Yay.
See, if any of you juniors become my student assistant next year, you get a Dr. Pepper most days.
Or whenever drinking.
Yeah, that is true.
Wait, what?
Well, I could hypothetically
That
be
is
last year.
So what?
Like,
No, it's gotta be Mr. Rowell classroom approved. And so if they make monsters with spill-proof lids, absolutely.
So I could get a red line.
well,
Which is essentially makes your posture even worse.
I just thought it was funny. You literally have like a secret stash behind a like locked cabinet. I mean, it's like nobody getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Photosynthesis occurs in two stages. In the chloroplast, which is made for photosynthesis, light reactions happen in the thylakoid. Calvin cycle happens in the stroma. Electron carrier and energy molecules from the light reactions are used to store energy, as chemical energy, to be used in the Calvin cycle to make sugar from carbon dioxide. All right. This section goes over the process of photosynthesis, how chloroplasts capture sunlight, as well as how light energy is converted into chemical energy. Sun converts over 4 million tons of matter to light and heat. Only 1% of this participates in photosynthesis. Light provides energy for the initial set of reactions and then get transferred into the light independent or the Calvin cycle. Okay. This is just another visual of the light dependent reactions or the light reactions. Water is going to serve as a source of two different things. One is electrons. This is how electrons get into the electron transport chain of the light reactions. So it also serves as a source of hydrogens, which further drive this hydrogen ion gradient that makes ATP. And again, this is just an electron transport chain going from one to the other. Okay. Using that energy to move hydrogen ions. So the way that these electrons get energized from light hits chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is going to be a molecule that absorbs light, and once the light hits a chlorophyll, or some of these accessory pigments we'll talk about when we go over the AP stuff, it energizes electrons and makes them, quote unquote, excited, and it elevates them to a higher energy level. These will actually leave the chlorophyll molecule and go into the electron transport chain. Okay. Now, an electron left chlorophyll. What do we have to replace in that chlorophyll? If electrons left it, we need to replace the electrons. We do that by splitting water in a process called photolysis, using light to break water. So again, sunlight is going to hit chlorophyll in this photosystem 2, gives it energy, leaves chlorophyll, and then from there it goes down the electron transport chain, providing energy to move hydrogen ions across the membrane. Then it's going to be hit another chlorophyll in photosystem 1, and then those high energy electrons will go into this electron carrier NADPH. Yes, ma'am?
how does like water make up for
What are chemical bonds, ma'am? What?
How much chemical?
Yeah, so let's look at H2O, okay? That's a bond. What type of bond?
Hydrogen bond.
Oxygen.
Covalent bond, okay? What is a covalent bond made of? It's made of 2 electrons. Okay. Does water have a net charge on it? An overall charge? No, it doesn't have an overall net charge, right? It's got a partial charge, right? It's got what's called a partial negative charge up here and a partial positive charge down here, but it's got the same number of electrons and the same number of neutrons. So essentially what we do here is when we photolyse it, these are bonds, right? Okay, we'll have to do 2 of them. Yeah, I think we can make that work. Okay. We turn this into this. 4 H pluses, and then 1 O2 molecule, which this is going to look like. Going to look like that. So we got out 4 positive charges, but if we take 4 positive charges out of it, shouldn't this be negative? If that's what we're left with? Stop it. Here, take this out, right? So we're left with 1. It makes 1O2 when we split it. 4 hydrogens, 1, 2, 3, 4. And since we have 4 positives going out, we need 4 negatives going out. So we get 4 electrons, which came from these bonds. 1 electron came from there, 1 from there, 1 from there, and 1 from there. Okay, does that provide a little bit more clarification?
Yeah.
Okay, kind of. Basically, it comes from the bond between the hydrogen and the oxygen. What'd you say, Mr. Harrigan?
How many bonds there are?
Well, technically there are 2 electrons per bond, but half of them get sent to chlorophyll, and the other half get used to make bonds between the 2 oxygen molecules. All right, here's a cool little video, or a little GIF. So light hits photosystem 2, energizes those electrons, sends them to photosystem 1. Electrons get energized by light again, and then those electrons get sent to NADPH. Okay, and all the while this is building a hydrogen ion gradient, which ATP synthase uses to make ATP. So it's in that step 1 is excitation, where the electrons in photosystem 2 and 1 capture light energy, exciting the electrons in chlorophyll. They get transferred to electron transport chain. This is just another visual.
It's got eyeballs.
What'd you say?
Okay. Now, how much energy do these electrons have? This is going to be kind of an indication of that. We've got our vertical axis as free energy, and so when those electrons get hit with light, they become energized. They lose energy within each step of the electron transport chain. Then they go to photosystem 1, get hit with light energy again, become energized, and those energized electrons are transferred to NADPH. Okay. And again, these electrons originally come from water being split. So photo equals light. Lysis means to break apart. So photolysis is just breaking apart water using light energy. Lost electrons from chlorophyll are replaced through photolysis, which splits water molecules using light and an enzyme. This makes hydrogen ions, electrons, and oxygen atoms. Electrons replace the ones lost from chlorophyll that were excited and left with the chlorophyll going to the electron transport chain. Hydrogen ions and excited electrons continue the energy transformation. What are the hydrogen ions used for?
Pushing across the bonds for energy.
Yeah, they're used to drive that chemiosmotic gradient that ATP synthase uses. Something like that. So this is photolysis. Again, when you break down these 2 water molecules, oh, you're thinking 2 electrons. I was wrong. That happens. You get out 4 hydrogens, 2 oxygens, Oxygen atoms are released as a waste byproduct, kind of like CO2 is a waste byproduct of cellular respiration. Oxygen is a waste byproduct of cellular respiration. Okay, but that resulting oxygen forms about 22% of the air we breathe. Initially, say what?
So photosynthesis, what is photosynthesis like make? Because it produces oxygen as the waste product. What's it make? What's the product?
Sure.
So it makes glucose.
Yes, sir.
And then the waste byproduct is oxygen.
Yes, sir. You got it. Initially, Earth was thought to not have much oxygen. However, once photosynthesis happened, oxygen started being apparent in the atmosphere. Those excited electrons go through the electron transport chain. That energy is captured or stored in one shape or way or another as they traverse it, usually in these two processes. One, they'll travel through the electron transport chain and pump hydrogen ions across the membrane, forming this chemi-osmotic gradient. Then that will move through the protein ATP synthase to make ATP. The second way is then we've done that second ETC, forming an ADPH, which is another electron carrier. There's hydrogen electrons. Yes, sir.
You said planets produce about 20% of oxygen.
No, 20% of our atmosphere is oxygen.
Okay.
22%,
Plants produce
which was produced predominantly by plants. Some bacteria do that too.
Okay. So if there's only 20% oxygen in our atmosphere,
Yeah.
obviously that would breathe other things in. How? I guess what I'm asking is
What else is in the atmosphere?
Yeah.
Nitrogen, carbon dioxide are the predominant ones. Mainly nitrogen. There's like atmosphere's like 40% nitrogen.
Okay. What would happen if it was all oxygen?
It would die.
Wait, we can't have pure.
Oh no, it's called hyperventilating. It would not be good for us. we would, yeah, that would be bad. Okay.
Oh, okay. Wait, but what about those oxygen in a can?
That's not.
That's for when your body doesn't have enough oxygen. Like, because usually that's for when people that are either at high altitudes or are doing extremely well. And if you remember, we talked about fermentation, which is the type of energy gaining mechanism used when you don't have oxygen. It's not nearly efficient. And so the idea there is like, all right, we'll increase the oxygen content, see if we can drive more oxygen into our cells that don't have oxygen at this time. Okay.
So then the reason plants don't have to eat is because photosynthesis, they make the ATP that they need to send to mitochondria.
No, actually, here's the thing. So they're going to get most of their ATP the same way we get it from cellular respiration. But what do we break down in cellular respiration? What do we start with?
So they use the glucose.
They use the glucose from photosynthesis as their energy.
So then water's pretty much what they you would say at least eat as in humans eat food. Water's like what they take in to break down to make everything else.
Yeah, I'd say that.
So all they need is water. They don't need food. That's why.
And then that light is just to activate the source.
Yeah.
So they need water. That's why plants need water. Because water and light's what they need to make glucose to use for cellular respiration.
You got it. Now, when we give plants quote unquote food, essentially it's like the nitrogen, it's the nutrients that they don't get from glucose.
Yeah.
So that they can make ATPs. Not ATPs, they can make like proteins and stuff like that. Here's just kind of the energy diagram of the electron transport chain. All right, energy storage. From that light reactions, it is stored in ATP and NADPH. The chloroplasts transform light energy into chemical energy using the electrons from the pigments chlorophyll predominantly. That's it for the light reaction. Okay, this is 4 minutes. Now we don't have time for that. Light energizes electrons in the chlorophyll, which then participate in further reactions. Excited electrons transverse the electron transport chain, forming energy stored molecules ATP and ADPH. Photolysis splits the water to replace lost electrons and releases oxygen, which is critical. And then these molecules signify the completion of photosynthesis, light dependent reaction. Any quick questions over that? No? Yes, ma'am.
Is this just constantly happening, or like how does?
Yes. So the light, well, I take that back. The light reactions, when do you think those would happen? During the day. Okay. There's the other set of reactions called the light independent reactions or the Calvin cycle, depending on what book you read. Okay, that happens all the time. I take that back. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes, depending on the plant, it happens just at night. Depending on what metabolic pathway the plant has. If that makes sense. Speaking of Calvin's cycle. Yes, ma'am.
How long does a cycle take?
Ooh. I don't know. But I have a device that might be telling me. Let me know.
Yeah, is photosynthesis like slow or is it a fast process?
It's fast.
Define fast.
Well, fast is because cellular respiration is extremely fast. Like it happens hundreds and thousands of times, like in like I'd say.
Yeah. It is thought the entire process of photosynthesis takes between 1/2 and 1 second. But it can also take longer, up to a few hours, giving certain factors such as type of plant, the intensity of light, the availability of water, and the temperature.
So compared to cellular respiration, extremely slow.
Because how long does cellular respiration take? Because I know that one can get done. You can basically replenish all of your ATP within seconds.
Is that why there's more carbon
Why am I
dioxide
so
in
tired
the
all the
atmosphere?
time?
I know it says here cellular respiration takes 20 to 30 seconds. A single cell uses 10 million ATP per second and recycles all of its ATP molecules every 20 to 30 seconds. So it probably happens real fast, real fast. Because you can do 10 million ATP every 30 seconds. That's a lot.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Do the math.
So 10
Yeah,
million
you're right.
divided by 30.
Say what?
10 million divided by 30.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Is that why there's more CO2 in the
Can I do
atmosphere?
that?
Because that happens quicker?
No, there's actually less CO2 in the atmosphere. Oxygen's about 22%. CO2 is probably less than 1%.
Oh, so what's
Yeah.
nitrogen?
Yeah, nitrogen. Let me see.
That's a lot.
It's like
33,000
300,000,
Um,
333 per like
per
second.
Per second.
We're looking about, it's 78% nitrogen, 20.1 or 21% oxygen, and then about 1% argon, and then CO2 is about 0.04%. So, all right, Calvin cycle. Who do you think discovered the Calvin cycle?
Me, Calvin.
Yeah, Calvin.
Like this
All right, so that's exactly what's going to be on your exam next Friday. If you study that stuff,
What?
you'll do well.
Wait,
What?
what? How do I
I'm from
Oh, you got
Calvin, that's me. Temperature's Calvin.
No, that's Kelvin. Alright, so I'm going through the on-level biology notes before we get into like the AP biology level photosynthesis stuff. Going through it really quick. We went through chloroplasts, we went through the heat-dependent reactions of photosynthesis. Now we're fixing to go through the Calvin cycle. Those of you who came in, you need to come in sometime and make up your reading quiz. Okay?
Tomorrow.
I can't do it Friday.
No, tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Can I come in next time?
Yes, sir.
Can I do Monday?
Yes, sir.
I'll try Monday
Can I
too.
do Monday?
Yes, sir. Alright, in this section we're going to talk about the Calvin cycle, how it fixes carbon, not fixes in carbon's broken, needs to be fixed, but fixes it from a gas into a solid glucose. We'll talk about the 3 pathways for carbon fixation, C3, C4, and CAM. And then we'll talk about Rubisco. Y'all know what Rubisco is yet? Weren't y'all supposed to do this one?
Huh?
No, this one's for tomorrow.
Oh, I need to do my secret sauce for today.
Yeah, this is tomorrow. Right. Okay. Again, the light reactions, where do those happen?
In the chloride.
In the thylakoid membrane. The Calvin cycle happens where?
The
Stroma. Very good. Light reaction makes ATP and NADPH that the Calvin cycle will use. Yes, sir.
About the CK12. Are you, like, if they're late, you counting them as close?
From now on, yeah. Yeah, because I guess I said it one time in class that I would if you beat me, but no, your AP gotta be on time. Okay.
I was dumb.
So hot.
Except for the ones for the team.
Okay. All right. This is the formula for photosynthesis. Love it. Know it. Learn it. You should have it memorized. Because I will say this on Friday's quiz, they won't all be multiple choice. I will make you write this. I'll make you type this out. Okay. That's something you should know. Alright, we broke down photosynthesis into the light-dependent reactions and the Calvin cycle. Again, the light-dependent reactions take place inside the membrane. With thylakoids, it makes energy in the form of ATP and NADPH that can be used in the Calvin cycle to make sugar from carbon dioxide. The Calvin cycle is the second stage of photosynthesis.
I'll leave it.
Okay. Makes glucose using carbon dioxide. What's the formula for glucose?
C6H12O6.
C6H12O6. This occurs after the light-dependent reactions, often termed the light-independent or the dark reactions. We do not say the dark reactions anymore because it happens during the day too, so we try not to say that because it's a misnomer.
The non-light.
Yeah, light-independent. Okay. Also known as the Calvin cycle, named after scientist Melvin Calvin. He won the Nobel Prize. So the overview is just this. You transport carbon dioxide and glucose. The reactants are ATP, NADPH, and CO2. Product is glucose. So what are we making the Calvin cycle? Glucose from?
ATP, NAD.
Yeah, NADPH and CO2. Very good. Alright, so the process here is you incorporate CO2 into organic molecules, mainly glucose. Why is it necessary? All life is carbon-based, so all the carbon in pretty much all of life comes from photosynthesis in one shape or form, but only autotrophs can turn inorganic CO2 into organic molecules. Yes, sir?
Those carbon fiber have to be defined.
It's made of carbon, it's just oriented in a certain way. Okay. Alright, this is kind of a leaf structure. We've got, basically this is kind of like a mouth of a leaf that breathes in the CO2 or the O2 if they need to do cell respiration. We've got the stoma in the middle. We have guard cells. This whole thing together is called a stomata. Carbon fixation pathways. The C3 pathway. In this one, CO2 combines with a 5-carbon sugar, ribulose bisphosphate, which is catalyzed by an enzyme called rubisco. Rubisco is the most abundant enzyme on Earth. What's so funny, ladies and gentlemen? Creates an unstable 6-carbon molecule that splits into a 3-carbon molecule. The reason this is called the C3 pathway is because it makes a 3-carbon molecule. Right? This is what that process looks like. Now, this is a circle. What does that mean?
It's reversible.
It's not reversible. It's continuous, right? Meaning, whenever we add CO2 or anything, we always have to regenerate what we have at the very beginning. All right, carbon fixation pathways. The C4 pathway, what do you think it makes? A 4-carbon molecule as part of it. Okay, it occurs in plants like corn. CO2 combines with a 3-carbon molecule to make a 4-carbon molecule. Right there. This is efficient to use in low CO2 concentrations. This is also completed in a separate compartment. So it's got a compartment on the outside, and then it goes into this cell cycle where the Calvin cycle occurs. All right, carbon fixation pathways. Last one is CAM, glycolic acid metabolism, found in cacti and succulents. Sir.
I was trying to guess what number.
So basically, it's C4 that happens at night. Yep. CO2 fixation only at night to avoid water loss. This is adaptations to help with water.
Is it methane? Or
It has one.
is it CH4?
Yes, sir. Alright, so these are different cycles. In front of one, got C3, C4 is at low CO2 concentrations, and CAM is when it is very, very high. Say what?
It doesn't matter.
Because plant cells are usually square.
They have a large center factor.
Yes, sir.
Ask a question about those two.
Yeah. I'll try my best to answer. What's up?
I was wondering if you would put that like on the test.
Oh, will I?
Because you could just look at like a picture and it would have this label.
Or you could not give new ideas.
Yeah.
Just
I don't. You need to know that C3 is the most common. CAM happens in
Low light.
not low light, but at night to prevent water loss. and then C4 happens whenever there's low CO2. C4 makes a 4-carbon molecule, C3 makes a 3-carbon molecule. CAM is basically C4, but at night.
Okay.
Well,
I got the last one.
Chris, what'd you say about C3?
C3 is the most common one.
I just forgot.
All right, storing energy in sugar, carbon fixation with an enzyme called Rubisco. ATP and NADH from the light reactions give energy to a 3-carbon molecule. These half sugars can create the original 5-carbon precursor and combine to form glucose. So again, we add CO2. How many CO2s are we adding in the cycle?
Two.
One.
Like
One.
molecule.
So if we're adding 1 CO2 to the cycle, how many times does this have to go around until we have enough carbons to make a glucose molecule? 6. Right? Because glucose is C6H12O6. Okay. And then again, you always have to form this ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. It's RBD. Kind of looks like this. Yes, ma'am.
Alright, this is the carbon cycle or carbon?
Carbon.
Carbon cycle.
Yes, ma'am. No, you're good. And it's carbon fixation.
That's the same thing.
Television. I keep getting mixed up.
Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like. The energy from, as you can see here, the ATP and NADPH, that is what gives these the energy to go on to make glucose. The cycle completes, with the same molecule it starts with, ribulose bisphosphate. Cycle turns 6 turns of the Calvin cycle are needed to make 1 glucose, using energy from ATP and NADPH. Where do we get that energy from ATP and NADPH from?
Water.
The
Electrons.
from the what?
The electron transfers.
Which is in the what? The light
The light.
reactions, light dependent reactions, right? That's where the energy for the Calvin cycle is made. 5 minutes. We ain't got time for that.
no, we do.
Calvin cycle is directly driven by light energy. Is this true or false?
False.
Directly driven by energy.
No.
False, right? It uses the energy from ATP and NADPH from the light reactions to build sugars, right? What happens during the Calvin cycle? Glucose is formed, water is formed, ATP is formed. A, B, or C? A. Okay, very good. Which of the following does not occur? Release of oxygen, utilization of ATP or NADPH.
No.
B.
B.
Which one does not occur during the Calvin cycle?
Fixation.
That's all the Calvin cycle does is fix carbon.
Yeah, so it's like.
Okay. It utilizes ATP and NADPH to fix carbon into glucose. Release of oxygen happens when?
In the electron transport.
Which is in the what?
Oh,
Krebs cycle cellular respiration.
It's in
The light dependent reactions. Remember photolysis.
This guy here somewhere.
Is that, yeah. Calvin cycle, the second phase is photosynthesis, transfers carbon dioxide into glucose. Calvin cycle adds carbon from CO2 to a 5-carbon molecule called RUBP. These reactions use energy from NADPH and ATP to make glucose. Final part of the Calvin cycle is glucose. All right, quick summary of photosynthesis. We'll review the light-dependent reactions and independent reactions, as well as compare them with cellular respiration. Photosynthesis uses sunlight to make glucose. It involves multiple steps. It can be represented by the single equation, C6O2 plus 6H2O yields C6H12O6 plus 6O2.
And cellular respiration.
Yeah, cellular respiration is just the opposite.
6O2 plus C6H12O6 yields 6CO2 plus 6H2O.
You got it.
What?
You just said it right there.
All right, so key points. This is the formula for photosynthesis. Autotrophs are the things that make their own food, and most use photosynthesis. It's going to take place in chloroplasts, which is an organelle specific to plant cells. Light reactions occur on the thylakoid membranes. The electron transport chain produces ATP and NADPH. Light reactions convert sunlight into chemical energy stores in NADPH and ATP. Light reactions also release oxygen from photolysis. The Calvin cycle adds carbon. This is called carbon fixation to a 5-carbon molecule called RUBP. The Calvin cycle utilizes energy from ATP and NADPH that produce light reactions to make glucose. Looks like that.
Okay, it needs to be learned associated with
Say what?
It needs to be learned associated with
NADPH, this is the electron carrying molecule in photosynthesis, stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. You need to know that, how to spell it correctly. No, I'm just kidding, you don't. Okay, it's an energy carrier.
I was like, spell?
Energy from sunlight changes NAD+ plus to NADPH, kind of like how energy from glucose would transform NAD plus into NADH. Provides energy in the Calvin cycle. Photosynthesis, photolysis splits water into hydrogen, electrons, and oxygen atoms, which is the electrons are used to replace the electrons lost from chlorophyll. Energy from the sunlight puts protons from water into the thylakoid, creating a chemiosmotic gradient that is used to make ATP. Are you getting ready to go?
No.
Okay, we're finishing this section. Comparisons with the Krebs cycle. Calvin cycle, part of photosynthesis, uses ATP and NADPH. Krebs cycle is part of cellular respiration. It produces ATP and NADH. Cell respiration and photosynthesis occur simultaneously. Photosynthesis in chloroplast makes oxygen and glucose. Cell respiration in mitochondria uses oxygen and glucose to make energy, carbon dioxide, and water. Okay, again, they're opposites of each other. Couple misconceptions: plants photosynthesize only during daylight, respire at night. No, they do the dark reactions. They do the light independent reactions, the Calvin cycle, at night. So they can do both during the day. While light reactions need sunlight, cell respiration is continuous as well. Dark reactions may suggest photosynthesis only occurs at night, but it can occur, or photosynthesis. Dark reactions, yeah, don't worry about that one. Preferred term is Calvin cycle or light independent reactions. We don't use the word dark reactions anymore. Right, Mr. Brown. Although glucose is the primary product, it's stored as starch formed by the condensation of thousands of glucose molecules. Photosynthesis is complex. Yeah, we're good. Get out of here. Have a good day.
What you look on nobody?
Yes, ma'am.
So we're talking about the right energy, like your
No, I'll get you that. You know the but I mean, yeah, you should know that like you have to add light to photosynthesis, nice, and then like you get out energy in the form of ATP and cellular respiration with that.
When you reverse it, it's like energy at the end.
No, it's energy in the form of ATP.
Okay. I was not sure the information.
I'm gonna do some test corrections instead of everybody.
And instead of D.
Coach Tricia, I'm gonna, just call.
How do y'all like going over the old stuff? Or like the on-level stuff first? Like spend the day going through like the on-level stuff real quick.
I like that better. But
Okay.
isn't that wasted though?
Oh my.
I don't know. We'll find out.